So everybody, welcome to Clutch's Corner. We're going to be going over weeklies and dailies for the upcoming week using the strat. Let's go ahead and get right on into it. So starting things off with AMD. AMD has this nasty inside day right here after this big bleeding day. So typically after stuff like this, we can sort of see a little uptick, and this is just people sometimes just taking their profits out of this area and getting ready to get right back into it all over again. But let's go ahead and check out where the price targets can be coming from. For now, we're going to just ignore the extended hours and start looking at where some possibilities are going to be had for price targets. First one I'm choosing is right here, because as we can see, we get real close to it right here, but we do actually work through it here, 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 and here, with the real big contention being in this spot. And this area over here gets a little close to it, but this is where I really see the algorithm kicking in. After that, it'll be right here off of this wick, which you can see over here, also coming right back through it on this side. And then, of course, the high of the day on that 3. I did zoom in to the 5-minute here, sort of see like, hey, what's going on in this area? Is there something else on the smaller time frame that I sort of need to be aware of? And as you can see, right here is where that is, where we have this candle, this candle, this candle, this candle, and this candle all going through this price. So believe it or not, especially with this big wick right here, there's an algorithm here to be aware of. And that's all our job is to do, is just be aware. And if we are aware, then we can make informed and good decisions. And that is what I'm looking at for AMD. Amazon. Now, Amazon, I am saying could go either way, especially with the fact that it is a downward trajectory. If you look at like the trend that's going on in here, we can definitely see that this thing is pushing down rather than pushing up. Now, of course, it could come up and retest things up in this area and then continue on down, but it does look like it maybe just wants to continue to bleed down as far as this movement goes. But we're going to be prepared for anything. Remember, when I talk about ones can really go in either direction. So I'm not here to choose what direction that's going to be. I'm here to just react to whatever it does and make some good choices based off of that. Let's go ahead and start with the calls. First PT, yes, it's a little bit close right in here, but we're not going to ignore that because we can see it wicks off of it here, right through here, wicks down through it here, wicks off of it here, wicks through it, crashes through it, and then finally here again, wicking right off of this price. So this is definitely going to be where a potential of something is happening. An algorithm, of course. Now, right here is going to be the next one. But you can see all of these candles are wicking through it, and this one wicks right off of it, meaning that the algorithm switched at one point, which just enforces the fact that there is an algorithm here to be aware of. Then the top of this nasty 2, where you can see these things are having some contention with. The top of this 3, because most 3s have algorithms at both the top and bottom of it. And then, of course, the high of that day, right up in there. And that is what I'm looking at for the call side of things. Now, if we're looking for the put side of things, right in here is going to be that first price target. Zooming out over here, though, to the next area where price was, we have to just go find where price was. And it was over here on the 1st of May, it looks like. But right here at the bottom of this one, and if you pay close attention, you'll see that it's having a lot of trouble getting above it here. Not a coincidence. Right in here, same exact thing happening. Still having trouble getting above it there. So there are 2 really close algorithms right in there. The next one is going to come off at the bottom of this 3, which we can see has a lot of choppiness through this area. Right, so if it's coming down, this is definitely where I want to get like out of the play completely. I do not want to get caught up in this choppiness at all. You can see a lots of wicks off of it, getting real close, and then ding, 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 finally going through it, right? But this is a massive amount of sidewaysness, which means that there's pretty much a battle of algorithms between these 2 areas. And I don't want to get caught up in all of that. So I'll be out of my play completely if I'm able to catch Amazon at entry and ride it to the downside. This is where I'll be exiting. The last price target that I have is the bottom of this 2. And the reason why it's the last one is because it's pretty much like the bottom of that algorithm. where we can see it's having a lot of trouble getting through it here. And right in here, you can see what bounces off of it, kicks to the downside, which means the algorithm in that moment had switch, which just enforces the fact that yes, there is an algorithm there. Okay, so that is Amazon. Both Amazon and AMD look really good, really good. Let's continue on to BA. Now, BA had a massive day where it just like jumped off a freaking cliff and forgot its parachute, went all the way to the bottom of this trend area that's been here for quite some time. But as we can see, we're not getting below it, bounced off of it. Now, we were staying below it all through here, then we got above it. Now it looks like we're retesting that trend or algorithm all over again, pushing it right back to the upside. If we look at the 30-minute target, we can start seeing where some potential algorithms are to be aware of. First one being right here, where 1, 2, 3, 4 candles are all going through this price with a big wick off of it right here. Next one will be right here off of this. Failed 2, where it pushed up, hit something right in here and said, I'm not going to pull off a 2-2 reversal. I'm going to keep on going right off of that price. Then zooming out over here, there is something on the 5-minute. We'll get to that in a second. Right in here, right in here. This is just a classic case of like stairs down or steps, as I like to say, where it's just, hey, if you were in puts where your stop loss is going to be, it's going to be at the highs of these candles along the way. Now let's go ahead and zoom in to the 5-minute and start seeing what is going on here in this little spot in between. And I chose right here as my price target because as we can see, this is where it kind of breaks below and stays below. And then once it gets above this, it stays above this. So that's pretty much why. Nothing too complicated about BA, to be honest. It looks really good. And do I think it's going to climb all the way up? No, not at all. Not at all. It very well might climb up to just right here in that area and then be done from that, especially since this is an exuberant amount of range compared to what it normally does during the day. So if we consider the range that it had on the last day, on that Friday, and consider what it could do if it starts at entry, then as you can see, we're pretty much just taking out the price target that I just mentioned. But we're not going to ignore these in case A does go crazy, or if you are able to swing it by having next week's contracts. Don't swing it with same day contracts. You'll need next week's contracts to swing it properly, especially because we're starting things off on a Tuesday. You don't want your theta to eat you alive. With that being said, if you do swing it, then maybe swinging it, you'll be able to get up here to this area, but probably not in just one bit. CBX. CBX looks great in the long scheme of things. One thing I really like about it is that we are pretty much staying beneath this quarterly entry right here, which we have been trying to stay above, but now it looks like, hey, maybe we're done with that. Maybe we're getting ready to come back down and test out these lows all over again. Very possible, very possible. Wouldn't put it past it. Not a coincidence, huh? Look at that. Not a coincidence we worked right off of this. But the beautiful thing here is that if we do break entry, we will be below this trend. And we, when trends break, lots of volume comes in. I know Roger said it out loud right now. He's like, volume, big movement. I know you did, Roger. I know you did. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at where some price targets could be coming from. This one isn't too complicated either. Bottom of this 2 right in here, where we can see this wicks off of it and check out how this wicks off of it to the downside. Eventually, yes, it does break through, but I'm not going to ignore that. Their algorithm is clearly switching in. Bottom of this 2, where we can see the body of this candle closes right at it. So that's definitely going to enforce some sort of algorithm that's there. Bottom of that 2, because we can see that these candles are kind of chopping through. These candles are kind of chopping through it. Bottom of this 2, bottom of the day. Very easy with these last 2, just little pit stops that it could stop at. Along the way, CDX looks really good. All right, sorry about that. Now, this is not a failed 2, but it doesn't need to be, right? I always like to show this to my students, who really has control of this candle. We know that the buyers have control from the opening to really the low to the closing of the day, which is right in here. This is where the buyers were able to take control of the candle. And the sellers have control from the high of the candle to the closing. So we can see when we look at it like this, who has really control of this candle? The sellers do, right? So it doesn't need to be a failed two in order for me to see who has control of this candle. And if it does break through entry in the spots that we can go away down here, some of these are really easy to find. So let's go ahead and zoom in. We are going to zoom in to see what's going on in there. Of course, we have the low of that day. Then we have this two right in here, which is a little easy to see, actually, to be honest, where all of these candles are wicking right off of this price, which means the algorithm switched. Then beneath that, we can see that it's a little choppy through here. The bottom kind of midpoint of that algorithm is going to be right here on this one. We can see this, this are all wicking through it or wicking directly off of this price. So we're not going to ignore that, right? And then we have, last but not least, the bottom of the day right in here, right off that too. And that is pretty much what it can do within its range for the day. Now, this is one of those tickers that, yes, it's a little bit more expensive. Spreads might be a little bit wider when you're first getting into it. Use the limit order trick that I show where you adjust your limit order. Wouldn't buy this one at a market order, wouldn't sell it at a market order either. And I would love to catch this big movement that it could have. GS moves several dollars a day. So let's see if we can get that. Now, SBUX, Starbucks, hopefully we can get some coffee on the house from the market. Now it has 2 inside days back to back, and the last inside day was very, very tiny. So this really could explode and go in either direction. I don't care which way it goes. I'm just here to make some good decisions as soon as it does choose what direction it wants to go. With that being said, let's start with the call side and look up. Right here is going to be where that first algorithm is, where we can see that as we're coming down, we start kind of losing momentum in here. We get a little push up, and then we finally push back through it all the way. So that's going to be algorithm 1. Price target 2 is going to be right here off of this nasty wick in here. We're just not going to ignore that massive wick. It did end up breaking. So basically there was an algorithm here, and it ended up getting so weak that it wasn't able to be enforced. Right in here off of this, top of the day, and then right here, which is a little bit past it, off of the 3. Now, this is pretty much a classic case of steps, honestly, when it comes to the call side. If you were inputs from all the way up here, these are just the places where you're going to have your stop losses set or to refight for your position to keep it from going a direction you don't want it to go. Looking at the put side, we can see that there is a big shift in momentum right in here. Also right here off of this 3, none of these candles in a huge time that it had through all this were able to get down beneath this. Even this is sort of like a false break where it was like, oh, dipped its toes in the water, decided it didn't like the way that that felt and shot right back up. And we're going to have the bottom of this 2 right in here where look at this, doesn't like the way that it feels down here. Doesn't like the way that it feels down here, and that's going to be the farthest that I think it would potentially go for that day in hitting the bottom of that failed too. Starbucks looks really good, and hopefully it doesn't gap in either direction in the price targets tomorrow so we can actually take this play. GPS, gap. Hopefully it doesn't gap. All right, so looking at the 30 minutes, we're on the real-time data right now. Right here at the bottom of this 2 is going to be where the first price target is. We can see that these things all right here have a lot of trouble getting back above it. So that's going to be where the first one is. Second one's going to be right in here where you can see that these candles have trouble getting above it, right in here as well. Bottom of this 2, where this candle has trouble getting below it, these candles are kind of all chopping through it as well. Bottom of the day, and then bottom of this 2 right in here where we can see a huge momentum switch has happened. So that is gap or GPS. Hopefully we can get the right coordinates to get where we want to go with that. All right. M, Macy's. We can hit that clearance section, get some cool stuff for the bedroom. Nice long leg doji here. And, you know, it's not quite a failed 2, but again, who has control of this candle? Buyers or sellers. Buyers have control of this much. Sellers have control of this much. Sellers have control of the candle. This thing have a 2-1-2-2 rev, so we're looking for this thing to break entry and then come take out all of these price targets. Price targets being found on the 30 minutos, and no one ever told me a different language to say that in. So I'm like, what the heck, guys? I could learn 30 minutes in another language. Just tell them what language you want me to learn it in. I'll say it instead of 30 minutos. Anyways, bottom of this 2 right in here, bottom of this 2. Now, the reason that I'm choosing this one is because good golly, Miss Molly, this thing is choppy within here. There's a nice little wick off of this, so definitely not going to ignore that, right? Bottom of this 2, because this to me feels like the false break. And if you really pay attention, keen eyes will observe that the 1 is wicking off of this. It's not wicking off of that. So we have 2 wicks off of it right in here. So that's where I see that potentially happening at. Zooming into the 5 minute to find that one. Bottom of this 2 right in here. Bottom of the day for that 2. And let's go ahead and go into the 5 minute right here to see where this last one is. Bang, right there off of this, where it's a little easy to see why, because we've got 2 prices literally wicking off of the exact same thing. Bink finally broke and then was like, ooh, shouldn't be down here, and went right back up. So that's what I'm looking at for M or Macy's for tomorrow. Looks really good. Looks really good. Actually, looks really good. PFE was one of my favorite setups, the 2-1-2-2 rev. We're looking for this thing to break and go right on up tomorrow. Going to be a great look for it if it does. Zooming into the 30 minutos. We're going to see the top of this wick right in here. This is going to be where, if I was in puts and I had been riding this thing out, this is where my first stop loss is going to be. The second would be right in here. We can see all this choppiness through it. Third is the high of that day. Last one right in here is the high of that day, which you can see is that 1 and then that 2. So this looks really good. All right, moving into weeklies. Now this is where the you're going to have to hold it a little bit longer, so make sure you're getting not same week contracts, but next week's contracts. If you can afford it, even the week after that will give you some more time because your theta will be so small. Getting things at the money will have your delta be big, and then once you are in the money, your theta will be getting smaller, and your delta will be getting bigger, and that's exactly what we want. With that being said, nice failed 2 on Carnival Cruise Lines. This is an equity stock that I held for quite some time, and I made some good money off of it. I ended up getting a bunch of shares at like $8 and selling it when it was like at 27. So I like CCL. I'd like to make some money on some puts this week if possible, because it definitely looks like it wants to do that. Now we're going to zoom into the daily time frame to find these, and this is just a classic case of steps and or stairs, however you want to look at it, where we can see the ding, beep, bop, boop, bam. If I was in calls and this thing started coming down, this is where I would have my stop losses in or algorithms in order to protect my positions if I was a bigger money position and wanted to make sure that it did not go beneath anything so I could stay in the green. That's where I would have things. CVS, nasty failed 2 on this bad boy, looking like it wants to come take out all of these. Now this one is nice because we don't even have to zoom in. We can see that this is just the previous week, the week before that, the week before that. This is April's week, and then we actually zoom out all the way to over here for that last one, still on the weekly, but it's October of 2020. Crazy. That is what we're looking at for CDS. CDS I had on a yearly watch list last year, and I took out every single price target on the yearly watch list. It was the year before that right here. That failed too. Bang, took out every price target, and we're still going. So it's looking like it might really want to come down here before getting that nice little bounce again. Regardless, that's just really big picture stuff. We're looking at a slightly bigger, not bigger than a yearly, but we're still looking at a bigger than a daily picture here with the weekly, and it is just continuing that momentum to the downside. Gold. I love this ticker. It's such a great ticker. Smaller cap ticker. Contracts do well. If it breaks entry right in here, I'm looking at it to come test the last week's low, the inside week's low before that, and then the 3 right before that. Don't even have to zoom in for this because as far as range goes, this is what it can take out, and I believe that it will. Triple M. Nasty fail two on this bad boy as well. Moving into the daily, we can see that this thing has just been chunking its way down after losing momentum. You can clearly see the momentum loss to the upside in these two candles of the daily. Big bleeding all the way down. Of course, a lot of things had inside days on Friday as we were getting prepared for Memorial Day coming up on today and having the holiday off. People were not really trading as much. Therefore, there was a lack of volume in the market, which resulted in a ton of inside days. Now, if we do end up continuing tomorrow, and you can even use the inside days low as a daily entry or an earlier entry, catch that and write it all the way down. And then this is just another case of steps. We have step one, step two. Step three is a little bit more to the side because as you can see that we have a ton of trouble getting up through this. You know, we break down, we break down, we break down, we break down, we wick off a bit, we finally break down. And here we bounce up, and we're going to have some stops right in here, right in here, and right in here, based off of those daily candles where I do believe that it is going to have to break through all of this before it gets to here. So I'm not going to ignore these two spots that it has to break through. Really excited for MMM though. It looks really, really great, to be honest. AR, another really good looking setup. Fortunately, that price target is so damn close, right? But I can't ignore it. I can't ignore it. With 15 cents on the weekly, you will make some money. So, you know, there's that. As long as we can get past this, then we are going to come test out the, what is this? April of last week's low. And then, of course, we have this two all the way out here, the low of that. But we do zoom into the daily here to find that in-between section right here off of this bad boy. When you're looking at it on the daily, you can kind of see that we have a huge spike up, tried to correct itself, spiked up again. So when we come back down, here's another spot where it was like, ooh, ooh, waved right back up. So we're not going to ignore that. If it breaks entry, we have to be careful of this. We have to be careful of this spot. But if we do break that, then we pretty much have a clear runway to come test the bottom of this. If we break that, we'll test here and then here. Looking good for AR. AR is another great smaller cap ticker that has great movement with its contracts. Now, this is not the sexiest fail two I've ever seen in my life, let's be honest, but it does look like this thing is rejecting all-time highs. So if it is rejecting all-time highs and it decides to keep on going, well, where can we go? We know if we break entry, we'll come test here, 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 and here. And this is just a classic case of steps, right? It's not like there's a ton of algorithms in these spots or anything like that where, oh my gosh, it's wicked off of this 17 times on these can't really see that because we were just kind of at all-time highs, right? So there's not going to be a lot going on here. However, if I am somebody that was in calls, these are where my stop losses are going to be. And if puts come through and knock them out, stop them out, stop them out, stop them out, and stop them out, that we can come right through all of these price targets really easily. This during this time was a massive PMG, right? A massive pivot machine gun here. And maybe it didn't break on that Friday because, to be honest, a lot of things didn't on Friday. It was a very slow day on Friday. But if we break, we can come through and see all of this and see that continued movement that maybe that 3 wanted to pick up and run with. Moving on to PG, excuse me, Procter and Gamble. No gambling. There is earnings this week. Check some news sections. You can see which tickers have earnings. Nothing really major, but there might be a company out there that you're into. You want to put a little $100 into and kind of see what it turns into the next day. That's the only way you can gamble in the stock market. Otherwise, just know what you're doing using the strat, and you'll be a-okay. Anyways, fail two in here. We are going to be looking at the daily to see where these pivot points can be. Right here off of this two. Pretty easy to see where the tops are having trouble getting through this area. And then finally, once it does, we rocket through it. Right here, we did dip our toes into the water and stay right above it. So there's definitely going to be something here. Of course, where the lowest point that we dipped our toes in this pool, it's going to be an algorithm as well. This failed too is you can't ignore the giant wick on this. And I was like, oh yeah, failed too. Let's get out of here. Oops, never mind. And went right back up. So we're not going to ignore that. And the bottom of this two, I don't really think it'll reach the bottom of the 3. As far as range goes, this is a pretty good amount of range for the weekly. And I think right in here is going to be where it goes, where this wicks it. cracks through it, wicks it, breaks through it, wicks it, wicks it, wicks it. We're not going to ignore all that. We don't ignore all that on this side, y'all. But this looks like a really, really great setup as well. Tesla did its thing on the watch list. If you took it on the watch list, it took out like 5 price targets from last week when I had it on the watch list, but now it is looking plenty exhausted, staying beneath 1, 2, 3 trend lines here. You can see the darker one that I have right there as well. Close beneath all of those is kind of saying to me like, hey, I think I want to come back down and test out some of these lows in here again. And if it does, we'll make some money off of it because we're prepared for it. Of course, the last 2 price targets are going to be off of the 1 and the 2. We are going to zoom into the daily to see what else is going on in there. Massive failed 2 in here. This 322 rev was also on the watch list and printed out extremely nicely. So, take some of the money from the watch list that you've been getting on Tesla, put it right back into Tesla, and make some more money with it, right? We're here to make our money make more money for us. Not work for money, but make our money work for us to make more money. And that's the beautiful thing about trading. So we will test the bottom of this failed 2. We will test the bottom of this failed 2. Now this is not a failed 2, but we can see it got real wicky on it. Right in here and right in here. That is the low of the day and then the other low of the day I had just previously shown. So, or excuse me, week, low of the week, low of the week that I just previously showed. So this looks really good as well. I'm actually excited for Tesla, so I'm going to be keeping a good eye on. And last but not least, Moo. Just kidding, MO. Nasty failed 2 on it. Also rejecting all-time highs. Actually, no, it's not rejecting all-time highs, but really close to it. Doesn't like being up in this area. So with that being said, maybe it's ready to break down and escape. And if it is, we'll be ready to help it do that with some puts. Price targets are going to be right there. I don't know why it was right there. Actually, let me put that back and see. Did I just miss something? Nope. I think that was just a little misdrag by 4 pennies. Little misdrag by 4 pennies. So yeah. Anyways, right there is going to be the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. We're going to zoom into the hour. No, it wasn't a misclick. It wasn't a misclick. There we go. Because I zoomed in for the hour, and that is where I think that the first price target is going to be based on the hour candles. And then the one that we were kind of looking at in the in-between is going to be right in here, which look at how choppy this gets. Tries, shoots on up, right? So if it tries to get down here again, this is going to be the spot that we're looking at. And yeah, that is the weekly on it. So cool. Much love. That's everything. That is 18 opportunities for this coming up week. Short week. So, be aware of that. There is some news. Check the news section for the speakers that'll be speaking, when they'll be speaking, in any ER that's coming up. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And I will see y'all right back at it tomorrow. God bless. Have a great day. And I will see you soon.